Hello there ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you the 6th episode of my arcade tutorial series that I like to call TX's Tips. In today's instalment, we are going to be taking a second look at the concept of dealing with stock syndrome. For those of you who did not see the previous episode and do not have time to click the link in the top right corner of your screen, as displayed now, I'll quickly go over what stock syndrome is. It is a term I've coined for the idea of having to fly a completely stock and therefore below full performance aircraft in a standard arcade game when going up against most opponents who probably have slightly if not fully upgraded aircraft by comparison with your own. As a result, the overall performance differential can actually lead to you feeling a bit negative in general and feeling as though you've got to do double the work in order to achieve a single kill or even earn a decent haul of research points. In the previous episode we took a look at a moderate battle rating example, a KI-61 Hehian, at a battle rating of 4.3. We found that there were a number of tactics and overall sentiments which we had to employ, and now I'm going to take this a little bit further and analyse a battle rating 6.3 aircraft which is in a very slightly upgraded condition. However, without going into too much detail, let's get down to business and take a look at what we can learn today. The gameplay I'm about to show you involves an almost completely stock TA-152H1. The only upgrade I have unlocked for the plane is the offensive 20mm cannon upgrade. I shall be playing on the ground strike map Desert Coast in a battle rating 6.0 plus match which does not involve jet aircraft of any type. The tactics I am about to depict are applicable to both ground strike and airfield domination matches, and even to those games in which you face jet aircraft. The main difference when flying a prop engine aircraft up against jet aircraft is that both your times to and for engagement are much shorter, meaning that you have to make your decisions earlier on and try to anticipate the intentions of your opponents from greater distances. To provide you with a contextual example of this, when facing an enemy prop engine aircraft, I will usually make my decisions based on the movements of my opponent approximately 2.0 to 2.5 kilometers away. Meanwhile, when facing jet engine aircraft, I will usually extend this decision envelope to roughly 3.5 to 4.0 kilometers, depending on how quickly the jet intends to converge with my aircraft. General principles aside, I shall now cover the 3 steps I mentioned in the previous tutorial video for the selected aircraft. To remind you of the steps, they are: Number 1. Test flight. Number 2. Mindset. And number 3. Setup. Step 1. Test flight. My initial test flight of the TA-152H1 demonstrated that the plane's performance as a whole gradually improves with altitude, especially once the plane is taken above 5,000 meters. Moreover, the plane seems to handle best at higher speeds, i.e. 400 km an hour or more, and its control surfaces respond very well in high speed dives. Combined with a consistently high roll rate, this plane seems to favour the energy fighter role. However, the plane seems to bleed speed rather quickly following turns or slight changes in direction, and so I will have to avoid being lured into turn fights where possible. In terms of the armament, the two 20mm cannons and one 30mm cannon make for a monstrous burst mass, and seeing as the 30mm is located in the nose, whilst the two 20mm are placed inboard, this indicates I do not have to worry as much about firing at my target at convergence, as this setup will provide me with a nice spread at larger distances. I also note that the muzzle velocity of the 30mm cannon is significantly lower by comparison with the 20mm cannons, and so at greater distances, especially when facing fighters, it may be better to employ only my 20mm cannons in order to conserve 30mm cannon ammunition. Step 2. Mindset. The same standardized mentality of 1 kill in a stock aircraft being equal to 2 in a fully upgraded aircraft applies here, along with the need to accept assists when they arise, and try to use these games to learn the ins and outs of my newly purchased aircraft. Still, unlike lower battle rating matches, I also have to remember that it is the medium/heavy bombers in these ground strike games which will influence the outcome the most, and so taking these planes down or forcing them off their planned trajectories should always be my main priority, especially when flying an aircraft with higher caliber cannons such as the TA-152. This also means I have to accept when a game ends quickly due to base destruction and just move on to the next game, starting afresh. Step 3. Setup. We are fortunate here to have unlocked our 20mm cannon belts, and so these will be set to air target ammunition in order to maximise their effectiveness. Meanwhile, in order to enhance my armament even further, I shall have my gun convergence set to 300 meters. Now you may be asking, surely this goes against what you stated in the previous video, that you set planes with armament based around the nose to a gun convergence of 500 meters. You would be correct in saying this, yet the TA-152H1, unlike other German high battle rating fighters, is a special case, due to the 30mm Mk108 cannon in the nose, which has a higher fire rate but a lower muzzle velocity. As a result, I will always try to engage my opponents, especially enemy fighters with their smaller target surface areas, at close range, i.e. 300 meters or less, in order to allow both my 20mm cannons and 30mm cannon to land hits. At distances exceeding 300 meters, I will usually only utilize the 30mm for attacking enemy bombers, whilst reverting to my 20mm for attacking enemy fighters as stated earlier. This philosophy can be extended to other German fighters such as the Messerschmitt 19 G6, G10 and K4, or even to late series Soviet Yak-9s such as the Yak-9P and Yak-9UT when in the 20mm 37mm configurations. As per usual, I shall be flying with a standardized 30-minute fuel load in order to ensure that I can continue to fly throughout the entire game session, or that I can land safely if I experience a fuel leak. With that all being said, let us get to work, and remember to always have fun in the process. Performing my standard opening climb strategy of climbing towards the enemy at first in order to try and convince my opponents that I am just another generic fighter flying about, I've been successful in being able to assess the initial composition of the enemy team. I've not yet seen any jet aircraft, suggesting that I may be in a battle rating 6.3 maximum match bereft of jet fighters such as the P-80 Shooting Star and the Yak-15 series aircraft. On the other hand, I have noticed a rather aggressive push from the enemy team's fighters, and that they have quite the concentration of bombers, as denoted by the black dots up high. The rather assertive opening from the enemy F-8F Bearcat in particular is what encouraged me to wing over back into friendly territory much earlier than I normally would. Here I decided to wing over at 3.5 kilometers rather than my usual 2.5 kilometer distance. Attempting to stick to my mantra of keeping my eyes on the enemy wherever possible, I can now attempt to build both my altitude and energy. I am rather fortunate here to be on a team that is also trying to take control of the higher altitude regions. As a result, this means that the time available to me to enhance my overall position has been increased, as it is unlikely that an enemy fighter will be able to break away from the main furball to pursue me. Now at roughly 4,250 meters altitude, we can begin to reassess the situation, especially seeing as the nearest viable threat is a Yak-9 that is 13.5 kilometers away, with this plane being engaged by our friendly Yak-3. I can still see a number of black dots up high, indicating a resilient group of enemy bombers proceeding to target. Despite the fact that our friendly F-8F and TA-152 are both attempting to intercept them, starting with the enemy B-17 at 8.9 kilometers away, we still need to prioritise taking down any bombers that manage to break through our friendly lines. However, I also note two ominous black dots in the distance at roughly the same altitude as myself. I evaluate these unknowns as enemy fighters, attempting to climb to either defend their bombers or attack our friendly B-17 at approximately 6.7 kilometers. Ergo, while it would appear that our team was victorious in the initial furball, we can by no means become complacent. We need to continue to improve our altitude position and assess events as they unfold. Now at 4,850 meters altitude, our first target of opportunity has arrived. Whilst our friendly Bearcat is hunting down the enemy B-17, an enemy B-24 has just been identified, and seems to have no escorts to accompany it. Assuming that our Bearcat does not finish off the B-17 too soon, we should have a free run on the Liberator. Hence, we still have some climbing to do to provide us with a chance of hitting the B-24, and seeing as the B-24 is 6.7 kilometers away, we have sufficient time to set up our engagement. Well, I guess the saying is true. There is no such thing as a free lunch. To explain, the B-24 appears to be in a gradual dive, which may mean that I will not get the chance to engage them, as I do not want to compromise the position I've just constructed for myself, or that I will get a small engagement window in which to take them out. But more importantly, an enemy Yak-9 has appeared at roughly 6 kilometers, and seems to be heading our way. We need to keep an eye on this foe, as while they will not be able to intercept us en route to the B-24, we could be forced to face them soon after. Note how I am now at an impasse, and I have to make a choice. The enemy B-24 has dropped their altitude to roughly 5,500 meters in order to try and make it to target, and is heading straight towards me. Being 3 kilometers away, this means we will soon enter a head-on pass. However, the enemy Yak-9 is only 4 kilometers away, and is also heading directly towards me, meaning that as soon as I have made my pass on the B-24, I will enter a head-on with them as well. Still, this is assuming the Yak-9 is not going to pursue our friendly F-8F, who is only 2.4 kilometers away and is continuing its pursuit of the B-17. As a result, I can either go for the Liberator and assume that I'm going to have to take the Yak-9 head-on soon after, or I can turn away, knowing that I will give the B-24 a free run and permit the Yak-9 to close the distance, assuming that I am their target. I decide to go for the B-24, as I feel confident in both my position and my plane's capabilities. Now up at 5,300 meters altitude, with a speed of 370 km an hour, I'm beginning to enter my optimum performance region. If the Yak-9 does go for the head-on, I will attempt to snap roll past them and break away. Now only 1.3 kilometers away from the B-24, the Yak-9 appears to be going for our Bearcat, although they have been smart and shown no overriding desire to either pursue myself or my teammate. This puts me in an incredibly uncomfortable position, and almost causes me to screw up my pass on the B-24, as you are about to see. All I am thinking about right now is that Yak-9 at roughly 2 kilometers away. That was a close one. We managed to detonate the bomb load of the B-24 with one of our 30mm high explosive incendiary rounds in a rush burst of cannon fire, granting us our first kill. Moreover, the Yak-9, now identified as the Yak-9T, forced a last-minute head-on as predicted. We managed to achieve a hit on the Yak-9T, with our snap roll allowing us to avoid any incoming fire. Note how the fact that I was in a gentle dive during the head-on with the Yak-9T has permitted me to break away at a speed of 500 km an hour. This permits me to reset my position rather easily and to prepare myself for the next engagement. I will examine head-on passes in a future tips video, but would always recommend trying to have the altitude advantage in a head-on, as it gives you a much more freedom to maneuver following the pass. Still, it would appear that both myself and the Yak-9T have the same philosophy in mind. Run! Almost 4 minutes into the game, we have now achieved our objectives of controlling the higher altitude regions and forcing down any bombers attempting to level bomb from up high. We can now begin to plot our next move. A freshly spawned in B-17? I wonder if they will dive or carry on towards me. They dived. Never mind. At this point, there is very little need for me to continue to linger around up high. The enemy Yak-9T at 7.7 km away is being chased by both a friendly Bearcat and TA-152, and is the only potential threat up beyond 5,000 meters. As a result, I can now consider switching to a purely boom and zoom capacity. Time to drop some of my altitude and look for a viable target. Despite being up at 5,400 meters altitude, and therefore unable to identify enemy fighters at much lower altitudes due to my pilot's poor awareness skills, I can use friendly aircraft to highlight potential targets for me. Here, we note from the kill feed that our friendly Dornier 217K has just been taken out over the enemy airfield by an enemy LA-9. In general, I have found that bombers attract a lot of attention in high battle rating matches, i.e. from 5.0 plus. And so, where one enemy fighter has taken out the bomber, it is most likely that there are many more who also pursued the bomber. It is these daisy chains which can lead to some very nice boom and zoom opportunities. The sudden appearance of this enemy P-51D Mustang suggests that I am hovering above the enemy spawn. Combining this with the observation of the Dornier 217 being taken out indicates that I am flying over a target-rich environment. Having made my last checks to ensure no more enemy bombers have spawned in, it's time to dive. My theory has been confirmed, and the presence of the two friendly bombers, i.e. the G8M1 and the PE3, makes this even sweeter, as now I have two friendly bombers who will attract the enemy fighters like moths to a flame. My intention is just to make my way through and pick off those who are oblivious to my presence. 3 more kills in the space of 20 seconds, and all for minimal effort. Let us break that down for the purpose of this tutorial. I was unfortunate to have to attack the ME-410 B6 first, as their rear gunner partially alerted the rest of the enemy planes to my presence through the sound of their gunfire. Moreover, the pilot of the ME-410 had time to jink about, causing me to waste time taking them out. I was then going to attack the P-51D, yet the time wasted on the ME-410 meant that if I went for the Mustang, I could have overshot past the Bearcat, compromising my run completely. As a result, I went for the safer option, missing out on both the Mustang and the KI-102 as a result. Concerning the second Mustang, I get the feeling that their friendly Beaufighter Mark 10 may have been firing from behind them, causing to break off before the G8M went down. Hence why I concentrated on the Beaufighter and let this other P-51D go. What is also worth noting that is all 3 kills were achieved at a range of 0.3 kilometers or less. Again reiterating the statement from earlier that I need to get as close as possible to get the maximum impact from my armament. Still, it is time to break away, as there are a lot of enemy fighters who are now probably baying for my blood. Well, it looks as though only the F-82 Twin Mustang wants to keep chasing me. I can always drop my altitude to build my speed if needs be. Let us lure them back to friendly territory. They are determined to catch me. Fortunately, a friendly Focke-Wulf 190 is now in pursuit of the Twin Mustang. I intend to force ahead on once I've passed the mountains. The F-82 bailed. That is a pity. Time to gradually rebuild my altitude and look for a new target. With the enemy stragglers eliminated, I am confronted with a large furball only 3 kilometers away. It is mainly populated by enemy fighters, yet a number of friendly planes are making their way over, and so I intend to be the last plane to pass through it in order to try and bag my ace. If any enemy planes break out of the furball and head towards me, I can always perform a loop or a split S in order to break away. My Immelman has provided me with some additional altitude with which to dive. Now it is just a case of picking a target from the pack. Either the A6M3 or the Tempest seem to be good targets, although the A6M3, with its tight turn circle, is going to be the harder of the two to hit. Go for the Tempest, there's no one chasing it! Okay, I will be honest, at the time of recording this game I lost my temper when I received the assist on the Tempest. However, the more and more I reflect upon this game, I realise that I made the best out of a rushed approach, and I almost lost my plane on the way out of the furball. This is exacerbated further by the arrival of this enemy P-51D Mustang at 2.4 kilometers away, who is about to pass through what is left of the furball, with my plane positioned at the tail end and therefore attempting target. Just bring her home. Friendly territory is close by. With the enemy Mustang at roughly a kilometre away, the reinforcement I was expecting is going to arrive a little later than anticipated, even with our friendly P-51D already opening fire on the enemy Mustang. It seems that my foe is determined to chase me down. I quickly recall seeing a set of mountains close by on my left. Perhaps I can use them as cover. If only I had a little bit more energy. Still, I managed to dodge almost all the P-51Ds pass, forcing them to go into a stall and become an easy target for our friendly fighters. We were fortunate to have placed our plane near the mountain range in order to blunt the majority of the Mustang's pass, although if we did not have that luxury, I would most likely have performed a split S and tried to force the Mustang back to his or her pursuers. With that being said, that is the end of the game, and now it is time to review some post-game stats. So, we conclude by seeing that our 4 kills and single assist netted us 64,126 silver lions, thanks to the addition of a 50,000 silver lion battle trophy. On top of this, we earned 1,709 research points, with all of those going towards our research on the ME-163B Comet, but more importantly, allowing us to make good ground on our fuselage repair upgrade. Now, at a battle rating of 6.3, it takes approximately 11,000 research points just to get a single Tier 1 upgrade for the TA-152. However, at this rate, it would only take us roughly 7 to 8 games to get that upgrade, or indeed any other upgrades on the Tier 1 category. As a result, we've done very well for a stock aircraft, and as we are going to see very shortly, whilst we were not top of the team by any margin, we did contribute quite well to a very tough game in which we made the most of our limited capabilities. I feel that we have to put our success down to the 4 factors we covered at the end of the previous video. Number 1. Patience. Throughout this game we displayed a tentative capability in order to be patient and not go charging into the fray, minus that last furball where we tried to take out that Tempest. Key examples of this would be our overall ability to obtain higher altitudes. Additionally, our ability to remain behind the very long daisy chain of enemy planes and try to open fire at closer ranges rather than just spraying and praying for hits, minus when we opened fire on the ME-410 who was firing back at us. Our ability to get in close meant that we could make the most of our armament, and indeed our ability to be patient and not flinch when that Yak 9 was trying to make us flinch allowed us to get that kill on the B-24 Liberator at the very last minute. Additionally, we also lured an F-82 twin Mustang back to friendly territory, causing them to bail out. If we had turned to face them, it could have been a whole different story. Our second factor is avoiding the tension. Again, at the start of the game, our opening climb strategy allowed us to gain altitude and remove the emphasis from targeting our plane. We capitalised on the fact that our friendly fighters were also trying to combat for the higher altitude regions, and so we just managed to mingle in the mix when and where appropriate, whilst not actually exposing ourselves to any danger or threat. We also avoided attention in the fact that we made our boom and zoom run count and we caught the entire enemy daisy chain by surprise. Until that ME-410 fired and we started firing back, I doubt many of the enemy planes there actually knew we were coming, allowing us to achieve our 3 kills in a 20-second window. Thirdly, opportunities. Now, throughout this game we had very limited opportunities presented to us. We had to force most of our opportunities to come into being, especially when we got the kill on the B-24 Liberator, because we could have easily turned away due to the threat of that Yak-9T. However, we forced the situation and granted ourselves a kill and a couple hits on the Yak-9T without taking any hits back. The main opportunity we created for ourselves was that boom and zoom pass, because we utilised the fact that we could tell there must have been a large enemy concentration down below us, and, having already seized the higher altitude regions, thanks to our ability to avoid attention, we then capitalised by avoiding our attention further and seizing the opportunities which we ourselves created. Finally, we also picked the right moments in order to dodge fire from the enemy planes or just break away. It's seizing these chances which enable you to get the most out of the plane and keep in the fight for the longest period possible. And our final factor of luck. Now, in most situations here we did not have too much luck. However, some examples would include the fact that we managed to position ourselves near the rocks just as that final enemy Mustang was coming after us, and we only took grazing fire when we both went up into the stall. Another sort of luck-based item we could consider would be the fact that the enemy formed themselves into that lovely line and allowed us to get those 3 kills. Although, with everything you have to have a bit of luck, and so really luck is prominent throughout this game, especially when that 30mm round hit the B-24 Liberator's bombs. With that all being said, I'm now just going to flick over towards the score screen, by comparison with the rest of our team. And as we can see, we came 9th out of the rest of our team, and as a result, you should expect that if you're going to play in a similar fashion to depicted here, or just try and utilise the most out of a stock aircraft without getting shot down, your overall performance will not be too comparable by the rest of your teammates. However, if you play at your pace, and utilise the strengths of your aircraft and indeed your own capabilities, you'll get a decent game without the need to try and outperform everyone else on both yours and the enemy team. For completeness and also to provide me with a disclaimer, I am now going to show you that I only have the offensive 20mm cannon belt upgrade for the TI-2H1, so there can be no dispute or argument as to this point. I would also like to point out that when I do unlock my first jet aircraft, if I find that flying one stock is a bit different from flying a high battle rating fighter with a prop engine from stock condition, then I will produce a third stock syndrome episode covering the last items, i.e. the jet based aircraft. Still, that's a story for another time. And with that being said, that's all there is to it. When you really think about it, flying a high battle rating aircraft of say 5.7 or more is no different from flying a moderate battle rating aircraft of 4.3 or so in stock condition. The main difference is that the planes you go up against now, whether they're fully upgraded or in the same condition as your own, all these planes are the definition of their intended role. For example, the Messerschmitt 19K4 is now the idealistic energy fighter, and as a result you should also expect that the pilots you go up against have got a lot of experience and know how to command their planes well. As a result, whereas when you're flying the moderate battle rating aircraft you can take some very risky chances, you simply have to step back a little bit further and realise that you're going to have to make the chances count when they arrive, and, on very rare occasions, force chances of your own as depicted in the video. Still, what I say should always be taken with a pinch of salt, because what works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And so, I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder tips and tricks videos on my channel. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies!